morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and I've got a detailed weather update on the situation for southeast Queensland this afternoon and this evening. It's looking like a big storm day, and we've got some serious potential for some isolated, very dangerous severe thunderstorms into parts of southeast Queensland and around Brisbane. Yesterday was another cracker day for New South Wales. Lots of thunderstorms to talk about from yesterday as well. We've had some good signals of rainfall now beginning to fire up along the North Queensland rainfall forecast as well, and more thunderstorms also forecast across the NT and Western Australia. Let's get stuck straight into the forecast though, particularly for southeast Queensland. That's the area that's definitely a big concern at this point in time. We are looking at yet again another really big storm day for the eastern states, and the high cloud coverage, whilst it looks pretty intense on this imagery here, you can see there is actually quite a bit of high cloud coverage that's on the latest snapshot of the satellite imagery. But if we flick this over to a visible snapshot, you can see that there is really minimal high cloud coverage over the southeast corners of Queensland. A bit of wispy stuff moving up into the Sunshine Coast, and a bit of a thicker band moving over the Brisbane area. But all of this is really beginning to part out and clear up at this point in time, and this spells bad news for those in southeast Queensland. It spells good news for thunderstorms, but it spells bad news for people looking at this from a severe thunderstorm perspective and thinking, well, we're going to be seeing some pretty strong stuff today. Already seeing comments saying that it feels like a big storm day over in southeast Queensland, and that's because it very much well could be. Thunderstorms are expected to fire up in the next couple of 6 hours or so. We're forecast to see these thunderstorms from about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon over the border in towards New South Wales, and then about 3 o'clock into the southeast corners of Queensland, we'll see these thunderstorms begin to fire up. What we're looking out for is this sea breeze line. So it's that southerly change that's going to sweep through, and you can see it at about 4 o'clock here, moving through the northern parts of New South Wales, and then getting into southeast Queensland at about 4 or 4:30 this afternoon. That's going to be the catalyst for these severe thunderstorms, and you can see it takes until about 4 o'clock over in Queensland to really start to get off the ground here out of Boonah and Beaudesert towards the west of Nerang on the Gold Coast hinterland, and then you can see pushing up into the Brisbane city area by around 5 o'clock this evening. So these thunderstorms, they'll be slow to get going. By around 4:30, we're not expecting anything crazy to be occurring in southeast Queensland, but once it gets going, once that southerly change comes through, as we saw yesterday in Sydney, it is all going to happen towards the south of Brisbane. That southerly change will it will sweep through, and it will cause about a 45-minute to an hour-long period of severe thunderstorm. I don't use this term lightly, but mayhem across southeast Queensland. Some of these thunderstorms, whilst we're only expecting 1 or 2 to fully develop in this environment, they will be strong, they will pack a punch, and they could definitely cause some serious problems towards the south and towards the west of Brisbane. Now, speaking of the locations to watch, as we've been mentioning in all of our forecasts, Brisbane doesn't look like it's going to cop a direct hit from these severe thunderstorms, and neither does the Gold Coast. It's going to be locations towards the south of Brisbane, including Boonah, including Beaudesert, and then across towards the west, so out towards Ipswich, Lowood, Gatton, Marburg, and then up towards Esk and the Wivenhoe Dam areas where we're going to be seeing these severe thunderstorms pass through. Now, this is a look at the Access Convective Forecast model. This can be deadly accurate. 9 times out of 10, it's a great tool to be using for severe thunderstorm forecast and also for rain forecasts over in Queensland, and that's why I'm using it today. We're looking at these thunderstorms here developing towards the west of Ipswich, which is likely to be where the strongest severe thunderstorm activity is going to be, and then these thunderstorms heading towards the north-northeast throughout the early evening hours between about 6 and 6:30 before they get themselves up around Caboolture and Kilcoy and begin to fall apart up there. We will see these thunderstorms, or at least the remnants of them, make it into the Sunshine Coast, particularly around Maroochydore, Caloundra, and into the Glasshouse Mountains area, and even Bribie Island could see plenty of lightning and some small hailstones and heavy rainfall as well. Same deal with Caboolture, but we are expecting these thunderstorms to be substantially weaker by the time that they get themselves up around the Glasshouse Mountains area before 8 o'clock in the evening. The strongest severe thunderstorm activity is going to be between 5 o'clock and about 5:45 or 6 o'clock in the evening, and then after that, these thunderstorms are going to upscale into rainy, stormy messes, and we'll see them weaken off pretty substantially. Brisbane, like I said, not expecting anything too crazy. The craziest stuff for the Brisbane city area will happen north of the airport and up towards Redcliffe and through the Moreton Bay area, and then of course out around the western sides. Even Ipswich could be on a fringe case of seeing these severe thunderstorms here, but for locations further towards the west of Ipswich, so in the far western areas of Brisbane, severe thunderstorms not practically guaranteed, but they are extremely likely to occur later this afternoon and this evening. Strong thunderstorms, a little bit smaller in nature, also possible around Jimboomba, Beaudesert and Boonah. These ones could be the little brothers to the main severe thunderstorm that's likely to develop around the Gatton and the Harrisville area. Strong thunderstorms also possible over the border, again a little bit smaller in nature, but still possible over the border into the northern parts of New South Wales, particularly between 3 o'clock in the afternoon and about 8 or 9 o'clock this evening before they do again begin to really weaken off over there. So what's standing in the way of these severe thunderstorms from developing, and why hasn't it been a slam dunk forecast? Well, it now very much is a slam dunk forecast, but again, we were talking about that high cloud. It looked like it was going to be a bit of a concern, but these thunderstorms, they were over and done with pretty quickly over in south central Queensland last night, and this high cloud cover's had many hours to clear off, and it really is beginning to properly clear off at this point in time. Not to mention that, but the mid-level humidity in the environment that these thunderstorms are going to find themselves in is extremely favourable. We will have a little bit of dry air coming in from the west, but honestly, when we do see that dry slot, especially into the upper levels of the atmosphere, that's really going to help these thunderstorms more than hurt them, if anything. And it looks like that dry air stays far enough out towards the west. These winds are not strong enough until you get up into the mid-levels, where the dry air is actually pretty good for organised severe thunderstorm activity, and it really wouldn't take much. As long as it gets up to about 30 degrees across southeast Queensland today, or 31 degrees through there, it's not going to take much for these thunderstorms to break through this dry slot in the mid-level atmosphere and then break through into the extreme moisture that we're going to see in the upper levels of the atmosphere, where humidity values are back up to around 70 or 80%. And just to look at the convective sounding for these thunderstorms here, I mean, it really is, it is pretty much picture perfect. Again, that dry slot there, very, very defined. And that, as you can see, is that big tick down in that blue line. That is dew point, and you can see that parts away from the temperature line, which is a red line, and that is a sign of a big dry slot in the atmosphere. Overall, the environment is about an 8 out of 10 per se on the moisture readings. It is a moist environment, but it isn't anything too crazy. Wind shear looking very, very healthy for these thunderstorms. In fact, we have about 110 knots of wind shear into the upper levels of the atmosphere. So again, looking very, very healthy for these thunderstorms. It looks like it is going to be a cracker day for thunderstorms. It really is one of the best setups that I've seen for southeast Queensland. The one thing that's standing in the way of this and becoming an absolutely crazy severe thunderstorm outbreak is the convective available potential energy. We've still got values around that 15 to 1600 mark, and in fact, earlier on in the afternoon, they'll be pushing closer to 17 or even 1800 in a few spots over the border and towards New South Wales. But for the most part, values around the 1000 area through Brisbane. They do climb a little bit into the later afternoon hours. You can see them getting up around Caboolture here towards 1500. It's enough to get these thunderstorms off the ground and developing into a severe line, that's for sure. Severe thunderstorms have developed in lower convective available potential energy values, and the shear in the atmosphere is going to make up for that. But again, we would like to see these numbers just a little bit higher before we start saying definites and certainties for these severe thunderstorms. At this point in time, still a little bit of discrepancies between the forecast models out there, and still a few uncertainties that need to be ironed out. But at this point in time, I mean, it looks like a really good setup, and from all eyewitness accounts on the ground as well, with the just the feel of the day so far. I mean, a lot of reports coming in saying that it feels like a big thunderstorm day, and normally when we say that it feels like a big thunderstorm day, it very much ends up being a big thunderstorm day. Good temperatures already beginning to blow up across southeast Queensland, 22, 23 here out at Bow Desert, and 23 down on the Gold Coast, 23 also at the Brisbane airport as well. And at 8:30 in the morning, it definitely is beginning to climb, and these temperatures are going to be very favourable for these thunderstorms. And as long as these winds can remain from the north and shift a little bit over to the northeast, there's going to be lots of moisture coming in from the Coral Sea as well. We don't want these westerlies, otherwise we will see these thunderstorm chances get completely thwarted off. And to be honest, we do want to see a bit of thunderstorm activity through southeast Queensland, because it will mean a little bit of rainfall coming through. There'll be live coverage on this as well if very dangerous severe thunderstorms develop, and if severe thunderstorms do develop and they do look like they're going to go very dangerous, and I will run an hour of live coverage, and I feel like that is a pretty high chance now later this afternoon and this evening across southeast Queensland. So stick around for that and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Now, in terms of the longer range outlook across southeast Queensland, well, we do have a couple more thunderstorm events that we will be tracking out towards the later parts of October, particularly around next weekend. We may see thunderstorms return on Sunday afternoon and evening. Not likely to be anything too crazy by the looks of things, and in fact, it looks a little bit more like a rainy, kind of messy thunderstorm outbreak coming through here. But we may see some thunderstorms, and some of which could be severe. Again, a bit of a dry slot in the atmosphere here, but the sounding's pretty unreliable as we head out this far, and that's actually for the day before, so that's completely obsolete. But we will be watching next weekend closely. It looks like we may have a couple of rumbles and a bit of rainfall coming through for southeast Queensland, and some more rain-based thunderstorms on Sunday especially, so that could be some good news as well. And then later on, as we get out towards November, when real storm season activity does begin to build, we don't have anything on the horizon, but I imagine something will occur into the first or the second weeks of November, which have been tipped already as carrying above average rainfall through parts of southeastern Queensland. Hopefully that does continue to carry over into the most recent forecast models. And just pulling it back to this weekend, it is because we've got that big interconnected low pressure system type thing coming through for southeastern Australia. Not only does this mean some much needed rain drops, we're not really talking about anything significant in the way of rainfall through southern New South Wales and through Victoria. In fact, it really doesn't look like anything much in the way of rainfall is coming through for either state, to be honest. We may also see some widespread thunderstorm activity and potentially even a low pressure system in the Tasman Sea along the New South Wales coast, which will present the risk of some rainfall and also provide the chances for a couple of days of severe thunderstorm activity through New South Wales as well. Long range outlook looking pretty interesting around the weekend. We may have a large complicated low pressure system to talk about through eastern Australia, and as mentioned, that may present the risk of thunderstorms through northern parts of New South Wales and into southeast Queensland, as we would expect for this time of year. Now, rainfall not looking like anything too crazy through northern Queensland. In fact, not looking like anything in the way of rainfall at all right out to about Friday. Rainfall does begin to pipe up again after next weekend, and you can see into the last couple of days of October we may see an increase in shower activity through parts of the Cassowary Coast and into the Daintree rainforest, and also through parts of the Whitsundays as well. But definitely some more increasing shower and storm-based activity in the last couple of days of October is expected, and a lot of this will come from big outback thunderstorms firing up into the northern parts of Queensland, inland from the North Queensland coastline right down to about Mackay, and then inland to Longreach. We may be seeing a couple of days of thunderstorms out there, and again a couple of days of heavy rainfall also possible here and there around parts of the Whitsundays, and then up in towards the Cassowary Coast around October 30th, give or take 1 or 2 days. So interesting that the coral sea moisture is still beginning to continuing to flow out of the southeast. We're going to be seeing a lot more of it in the next couple of months, and that could translate to some rainfall in the next few weeks or so along parts of the Cassowary Coast and into the Daintree rainforest. Similar story for the Northern Territory and Western Australia. Thunderstorms have been widespread through the last couple of days, and it is the last few days of big thunderstorm potential through parts of WA. You can see they do begin to diminish off through Sunday, and then again into Monday there's very little thunderstorm activity expected through the Northern Territory, and not much in the way of thunderstorm activity for WA either. Thunderstorms do begin to resurge a little bit around the later parts of next week through parts of WA, and you can see a bit of resurgence to storm activity is expected into the last couple of days of October at this point in time through the Northern Territory, but again nothing too crazy and nothing that's really catching my eye at this point in time. We have to go much further offshore to talk about something that is even remotely interesting on the tropical scene, and that is a low pressure system that's trying to get itself going and will likely get itself going actually towards the end of this coming work week offshore from the Cocos Keeling Islands. This one here, not likely to become a tropical cyclone, and even less likely down around that 0% chance to be a West Australian impact threat or any kind of problem to the West Australian mainland and the Australian mainland at all. It looks like though we will see a weak low pressure system develop up here towards the northwest, the Cocos Keeling Islands, before it meanders down towards the south or the southwest. Nothing crazy expected to come from it. In fact, it's barely expected to become a tropical cyclone, and I highly doubt that it will, to be honest. Conditions aren't overly favourable for this weather system just now, but we will see some kind of brief spin up, and you can see or at least with wind gusts, it does start to produce some respectable wind gusts around the 55 to 65 kilometre an hour mark, and it could be a blustery and wet few days around the Cocos Keeling Islands and also for Christmas Island as well. So we'll keep a close eye on things out there, but again, tropical cyclone activity not expected, but it definitely is that time of the year, around this time of the year, where we are watching this part of the West Australian waters like a hawk to see if we are looking at any tropical cyclone or tropical low type activity. And again, we do have it now on the forecast modelling, and it's very typical for this time of the year, and especially that we are now in a very strong negative Indian Ocean dipole. When that Madden-Julian oscillation begins to burst offshore from Western Australia, which it is just weeks away from happening, and that's why this low pressure system is actually occurring, because the MJO is expected to burst up around here, which is why we're seeing this low pressure system around mid-October as in line with our MJO forecast. We do need to be watching this area very, very closely for tropical low and tropical cyclone activity, because it's often that they do get shot off towards Western Australia. It's even more often that they recurve well away from Western Australia and head towards the west and out towards Madagascar and Africa, but they do every now and then come for the West Australian coastline, and we need to be watching. Cyclone season is just around the corner, so make sure you are ready for it. WA, the Northern Territory, Queensland, and even the northeast of New South Wales, as you found out last year, getting a good scare from Tropical Cyclone Alfred. That's going to do it for today's weather forecast update, though. I'll have an update later this afternoon if severe thunderstorms look to be really dangerous around the Brisbane city area, and I'll also have some live coverage, as mentioned, as well, if we do see severe thunderstorms developing around the Brisbane city area, and especially towards the west as well, over on the YouTube page, so make sure you do check that out. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing. I would like to say a massive thank you to all 50,000 of you that are subscribed. We crossed that milestone late last night, early this morning. It tremendous milestone for me, and again, it's not possible without any of you, so a massive thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I'll make a proper post over on the Facebook page once these storms are done. Looking forward to tomorrow. You're strongly considering taking a day off after these thunderstorms. My voice is absolutely cooked, and I've got another day of it ahead, but I can't complain. These thunderstorms, the reason why I'm able to do CyclonesOZ, and again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for all of the support lately, and of course, thank you so much to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now. Could not run the show without them, and of course, their support is as always massively appreciated as well. But thank you to everyone that has subscribed, joined, left a like, and commented in the last 18 months. Your support is massively appreciated. That is all from me for now. We'll catch you on the next storm. Goodbye.